News is investigating the situation on the ground in Syria, and extremely complicated task it has to be. The government restricts access there, as you know. A civil war is raging, as you know, and dozens of rebel groups are operating in the country. According to a report from the D.C. think tank called the Homeland Security Project, which is part of the Bipartisan Policy Center, the rebel movement in Syria has a lot of overlap with al-Qaeda. Now, this report comes 12 years after the 9/11 attacks. It says if the U.S. decides to help the rebels, it could mean we would also inadvertently help al-Qaeda militants, one of the most effective rebel groups front, and it is effectively a branch. Group has been providing social services to build support with people in the areas it controls. If that group and others like it gain control of Syria's chemical weapons, they could smuggle them out of the country and use those weapons in future attacks. Robert Young Pelton is an author and filmmaker. He has spent time with al-Qaeda members around the world since the group was formed in the mid-1990s, and at one point, Osama bin Laden was even his neighbor. Robert, good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Trace, how you doing?
I'm well, sir. Thank you. My question is, do you believe, as others do, that al-Qaeda is not on its heels, that al-Qaeda is actually inside Syria flourishing?
Well, al-Qaeda's in a number of countries, and they've actually set up countries or caliphates in places as wide-ranging as Somalia, Afghanistan under the Taliban, even in Nigeria temporarily. So al-Qaeda is doing very, very well, and they're more powerful in northern Africa and in the Middle East than they were back in the early 90s. You remember they were an offshoot of us funding the Islamic groups when we fought against the Soviets. So back in the 80s, $6 billion was pumped into fundamentalist groups, which have then spread across the world to create what we call al-Qaeda today.
Yeah, and we said in the intro that by helping get rid of Bashar Assad, that we might be inadvertently helping the rebels. What about the flip side of that, Robert? What happens if we don't help the rebels? Do the rebels then say, okay, America left us hanging and we're going to lean more toward these groups like al-Qaeda? They're giving us schools, and if not schools, giving us money and food and some housing in some cases.
Well, Trace, we have a mechanism that was set up in the 60s by President Kennedy. It's called U.S. Special Forces, or the Green Berets. They are specifically trained to go in and support and train rebel groups and shape them on the battlefield. We neglected to do that. Remember, we did this in Afghanistan, where we sent in Special Forces groups right after 9/11, and we shaped the government of Afghanistan. So under the Obama administration, we have chosen not to shape that conflict. So that conflict has shaped us, and we found ourselves between two rotating sort of lawnmower blades. You've got the Shia-Sunni conflict going on, and you've got sort of the East-West thing going on, and we got on the wrong side of it by going against Assad, who is essentially a moderate Shia leader, and ended up supporting the growth of this al-Nusra, or Sunni arm of al-Qaeda.
Yeah, you have long argued that the U.S. has kind of been on its heels in the Middle East, and Russia really has been kind of leading the charge. When you watch what's happening, this chess game with Vladimir Putin kind of leading the charge here, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think Obama was playing chess. He was taking a very long time to make very complicated moves, and I think Vladimir Putin was playing checkers. He basically stole President Obama's lunch money and moved quickly to form an alliance with Assad, China, and other groups like Iran to come up with this peace plan. And as you know, the main criteria of military action is speed, surprise, and violence of action. I don't think President Obama understands that. So we've missed that window. So now we've got to deal with the UN and a very complex group of sort of diplomats to come up with a very, very unsatisfactory solution.
Yeah, Robert Young Pelton. Good to see you, Robert. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Trace.